Thank you. So my name's Carla Gianfrancesco and I'm leading on the development of Victor. This morning I'm going to be talking you through the background work that preceded the development of Victor, and then we're going to be looking at the course itself, and then finally looking at introductory information about piloting courses in interested centres. So thanks for joining us this morning. So Victor's been developed by the DAFNE programme and it's been supported by sponsorship from Dexcom and Lilly. And as I'm sure you are aware by now, that Victor's a structured education programme for people with type 2 diabetes on multiple injections. So Victor has got its own branding and strapline, which is in keeping with DAFNE, and this was agreed with health professionals and people with diabetes. So the ship's wheel is the icon for Victor, and it represents that there's a choice of paths on the Victor course. If you're staying on the same path, then you may get the same results. And sometimes a change of direction is what's needed to reach your goal. So we're excited to present the Victor course to you today. There's lots of work's gone into it up to this point. So hope you enjoyed the webinar. So in the holding slide, for those of you that were here earlier, there was a question on there asking, did anyone know what Victor stands for? So I haven't looked at the chat, but I don't know if anyone has typed anything in. I'll have a look later. But Victor stands for varying insulin doses for changing to routine. So if you got that right, there might be a free DAFNE diary in the post for you. You never know. So how did the course come about? It was really just the DAFNE executive board who review all the DAFNE audit data, looked at the data for type 2 diabetes. And although the numbers are much smaller, we know that people with type 2 diabetes are doing DAFNE courses. And what this showed was that, the demographics weren't that dissimilar, duration of diabetes, etc. And actually the change in HbA1c was equivalent to the type 1 population, say, although in much smaller numbers. And the other thing was that the weight didn't change either. So there was a reduction in HbA1c without any weight gain. But what you also notice is that the percentage of people who started with a HbA1c of less than 59 in the type 2 group is much smaller. And although it did increase over the 12 months, it's still a very small percentage of people with type 2 diabetes meeting those HbA1c targets. So it was felt that it was worth scoping out a course for people with type 2 diabetes to see if it was something that might be worth developing. And that's what we went on to do. So the scoping work was in a few different parts. So one of them was getting feedback from DAFNE educators and centres about what they thought about it. So there was a survey that went round that some of you might remember or completed, and then also there was we had a couple of discussion groups following that survey. So some of the things that educators were coming up with quite commonly were that the current service for people with type 2 diabetes on MDI tended to be often one-to-one, which was time consuming, and also felt like it was more didactic and there wasn't really that opportunity to support people to learn how to self-manage their diabetes. We felt there was an advantage of running something like a DAFNE course over local courses because of the structured education programme and the training and the high quality resources that went along with it. And people were talking about this knowledge gap, really, that people were expected to manage this complex insulin regime without inadequate support and education compared to people with type 1 diabetes on the same regime. So being able to offer a course for people with type 2 diabetes on multiple daily injections would be valuable. And we talked about how it needs to be tailored to the type 2 population. It's a much more diverse population in terms of age and ethnicity, literacy, numeracy, technology skills. And the messages we felt need to be simplified with a focus on physical and emotional health and acknowledging barriers to learning such as stigma and blame and it being weight neutral. The other scoping work we did was with people with diabetes. And some of the feedback from people with diabetes also sort of mirrored what was said by the healthcare professionals. So the group that we did was probably about half of the people had done a DAFNE course and half people hadn't done a DAFNE course. So knowledge and skill gap, not had any training, not been any courses. It's down to me to figure it out. People talked about the benefits of carb counting, that without doing it, they were literally swinging from one extreme to another. They would have liked the course to be tailored to type 2 diabetes. They were all talking type 1, type 1, type 1. I was like, hang on, how does that affect me? I'm type 2. They felt meeting other people with diabetes would be really important to help reduce worries around living with the condition. And there was different views on the format of the course, as we've seen previously when we've asked about different formats. Some people felt that they love technology and they think it would be fine to do online. Other people felt that although they acknowledged technology was good, face-to-face would be really important in terms of bringing other people together with the same condition. And then the other thing that came out was people felt they didn't have much support from healthcare professionals, primary or secondary care, and felt something like this would help them. So I think following the review, the conclusion was that the work that there was a strong interest in developing this course for people with type 2 diabetes, and there was, it was starting to emerge what the course could look like. So we set about to look at that, and really the DAFNE Executive Board at that point did support the development of the course that went on to be called Victor. So the project aims were to develop a course specific to type 2 diabetes that engages this population and engages diabetes teams, increases the reach of diabetes structured education, improves emotional and physical health outcomes for graduates of Victor, and enhances the user experience. Hang on a sec. Yeah. So I think just before we go into the course development, I just want to say a little bit about why I'm leading the project. So I mean, for many of you, I might be a new face on the DAFNE scene, but I actually am quite an old face. I've been around a long time. So I work as a dietitian at Sheffield Teaching Hospitals, and I've been involved in DAFNE since its conception in 1998 when I went to observe the German DTP course in Dusseldorf. I was a group of healthcare professionals from 3 centres that went there to look at that. And this group then went on to be called the DAFNE Study Group, and we undertook the DAFNE RCT in 2000. And that's when I became a DAFNE educator when we first started running DAFNE courses. So I've been running DAFNE in all its formats for 24 years now. And I've also been a DAFNE educator on and off over that time. A DAFNE educator, been involved in the DAFNE educator program, I mean. And then, yeah, and then I've been fortunate to work with lots of people over that time, developing DAFNE and the different DAFNE educators that I've worked with and researchers, and learned a lot from them and the people on the DAFNE courses. And most recently, I've worked with behaviour change experts and clinical psychologists as we developed the DAFNE Plus intervention, which you heard about at the recent collaborative. And in terms of, and I've worked for DAFNE for about a day a week over quite a period now, updating the courses for the diabetes technology, like the CGM parts of the course and the hybrid closed loop supplement. And then in my local DAFNE Centre, we run courses. Sorry, in the local centre, I'm running clinics for people with multiple insulin injections. So this includes lots of people with type 2 diabetes. So I've got lots of like week in, week out experience of working with the people that were developing this course for. So it has been great to put all this learning into practice and into the Victor course. Okay. So moving on to the course development, I think where we started with this was that the Open University asked us to give them some ideas of who this course was aimed at, because they didn't really understand the difference between this and the DAFNE course. So we came up with quite a few pen portraits, and I thought I'd just share one of them with you. So an example of maybe a typical person that might come on a Victor course: 67-year-old white female, educated up to CSEs. Some of you might not know what they are. Had a part-time cleaning job whilst children were growing up, and a carer until she retired. In terms of technology, she's got a smartphone and a tablet. She likes to play games on a tablet and go on Facebook. Her grandchildren help her with these devices and any technical problems. And she used Zoom during COVID pandemic, but wasn't very keen as the technical side was frustrating. She's had diabetes a long time, but finds it exhausting and stressful. She started on 5 injections a day, and a lot of what she's been told has gone over her head. She hopes Victor will be another opportunity to go over this again. She's unsure about how she'll get on with the technology and being able to see everything clearly on the screen. She finds juggling so many health conditions hard and wonders what she should be eating and what she's doing wrong. So we keep these pen portraits in mind as we're moving through developing the course. In terms of, there's lots of people had input into developing Victor. So as I mentioned, we've got a group of people with type 2 diabetes. The DAFNE Executive Board have had regular updates and commented and contributed to the course. On the board, there's Sally and Liesl and Jackie, who also sort of been helping make decisions about the direction of the course and the content. And then we've had experts around sort of particular areas of the course. So Nicole de Zoyser, who contributes to DAFNE Plus, who's done a lot of the psychology work around DAFNE. Simon Heller advising on the hypoglycemia aspect, and then Rob Andrews on the exercise management. And then also I've had a DAFNE Educator Working Group, which came out of the initial discussion groups, and they've been invaluable, really listening to my early ideas and helping me mould it into something meaningful. So if anyone's on the webinar today, thank you for your contributions, and they have made it into the course, as you'll see, and I hope you're doing the pilot with us. Okay, so what does the course look like? So Victor we've built 5 weeks of online learning on the Open University platform. So the aim was to make the modules shorter than the DAFNE ones. So we're hoping that the learning works out to be about 3 to 4 hours a week, but we will have to test that as we do the pilot. And the aim was to reduce the reading age of the course. So hopefully that's been successful. And again, the Open University have supported us with that, like going back to those portraits of the participants. The course also contains more illustrations than DAFNE and 20 short videos to reduce the written content. And maybe in time we can look at having subtitles or audio in different languages if that was something that was felt to be required. So it gives us quite a lot of scope with those. And then in terms of the other part of the course, we've got the 5 group sessions over 5 weeks. So similar to a remote DAFNE course. What we're suggesting about the group sessions is that it's up to the centre whether they are online or in person. And you can choose, and you can do both formats in the same centre. It's up to you, really. The way it's been developed is that the first group session is slightly longer. So it's probably like 4 hours. And with that in mind, and also the idea that maybe it'd be nice if people got together in person to bond in the first session, even if they were going to go on to do online for the others, it's my recommendation that the first session is done in person. I appreciate that's not going to be possible for all centres, but it's just something to think about. It's also in that first session, there's more of a discussion around diabetes long-term health and looking at action planning and goal setting, which I think is always it's better to do in person if possible. Okay. So just more broadly looking at the programme, got pre-course appointment. So we do have a promotional video that unfortunately isn't ready yet, that can help you maybe with that. Everyone should be on multiple daily injections before they start the course. We're not going to be switching people on the course. We do hopes and expectations, which is part of sort of behaviour change technique, and anything like the technology that needs to be set up will be done then, and data collection as standard. So the two parts, the online and the group. So the idea is that the online course is about knowledge acquisition. So things that people can learn in their own time, then they do online. And then the group sessions are for thinking about their behaviours, thinking about what they want to change, planning how they want to do it, and then sharing how they've got on with it. We've got the resources, so there'll be a workbook which will include action plans, and then we've got the Carb Smart Pocket Guide, which is like the carbohydrate portion list, but just has more things in it. The Victor Diary, and then we've got the infographics as well. And then follow up really just as standard, like with the DAFNE course. Okay, so I think if we were to say how DAFNE and Victor were related, we might say mother and son, because Victor does feel like the next generation, really. We're taking what we've learned from the past courses and formats, and we're incorporating it into Victor. And one aspect of that is the behaviour change elements of DAFNE Plus, and some of that we're bringing into Victor. So this was the DAFNE Plus timetable, and this is the DAFNE Plus was building on the behaviour change techniques that were in DAFNE already, which was knowledge and skills and problem solving. They were the main two. And there was different behaviour change techniques integrated into it through different sessions over the 5 days. And then through the advice of Nicole, we're now going to be moving some of these into Victor. And some of this has already been discussed wider, really, I think, for moving into DAFNE as well. But the ones that we're going to be incorporating into Victor are the action planning, which I think there has been a previous DAFNE webinar about maybe new ways of doing action planning in DAFNE. So it's going to be the same. You'd be pleased to know. You won't have to do 3 different types of action planning. The individual review, which follows on from the action plans. So it's very much about the individual review. So it's like instead of the diary session, so the focus very much is on how you've got on with your action plan rather than looking too much at diaries. They're going to be using social support as a behaviour change technique, and emotions and mindset as well, which I'll mention in a little bit. Okay, so bit of an overwhelming slide, but this is the course content. I'm going to break it down into parts, so you'd be pleased to know. So we've got the top is the online content, and then the bottom section is what happens in the group. So we're going to just look at, going to talk about the group first and then go into the different sessions on the online content next. So the group follows a pretty standard format in that you're generally reviewing action plans, discussing what's been learnt online, doing an action plan for the next week and talking about the home learning and an introduction to the next week. In addition to that, some of the sections do have a little bit of knowledge and information sort of giving, and which just felt appropriate really. So for example, in week 1, we are going to cover annual review and diabetes health complications in week 1 and look at personal targets. And then there's a session on action planning and how to do that. So that's all going in there, which is why I said it was a slightly longer session, that group session. Week 2, we'll be talking about how to complete a diary. We will do that in the session. And then in week 4, the stepwise approach dose adjustment practice. So those examples that we do in DAFNE where we get people to work through those, just feel that on the online course, people do often struggle to do that at home. So we're going to do that as a group in the session. And then moving on to look at this is the Think, Plan, Do cycle, which I've mentioned, which we'll be focusing on in the group session. So thinking what action plan am I going to do? What do I want to try and do? Thinking about how you're going to do it, going away and giving it a try, coming back and thinking about how did it go. So the focus in those group sessions is all about changing behaviours. What am I going to do differently to change my behaviour and how did I get on with it? Okay, so let's look at the content of the Open University course now. So I've got 5 weeks. They do the first week before the first group session. So each week precedes the group session. So just looking at the ones that I've highlighted first of all. So this is familiar stuff to you. This is what we cover in DAFNE, and we're going to be covering it in Victor as well. The difference is it's been made shorter and simpler. Just really what are the key points that we want to get across. So we've got the checking, the insulin regimes, how to adjust your background insulin, how to adjust your quick acting insulin, carb counting, correcting above and below target, hypos, managing social situations. I guess the order's probably a bit different as well. And then in terms of maybe some of the differences, so I've highlighted some things here. So glucose checks, I've highlighted that actually just to remind myself that this course isn't for people who are ketone prone. So we're not covering ketone checking, just glucose checking. And what else is the difference? So as well as assessing and adjusting ratios, we are also assuming that some people are going to want to stay on set doses, and set doses can work absolutely fine for some people on multiple injections. So set doses is part of Victor as well. So we have a section on adjusting those. The physical activity session is different because the advice is slightly different for people with type 2 diabetes in that the risk of hypos is less. So there's less adjustments to insulin and less adjustments to carbs for physical activity, but there is some. And then the illness session is different because we're not focusing on ketone checking, but we'll talk about steroid use in that illness session as well. These were some of the things that were fed back to us that people wanted in the course. So that's some of this stuff around that. And I think, yeah. So what I want to do is share some of the videos with you. And because I've just mentioned about set doses and this being a new part of Victor, we're going to play a video now on set doses. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen and hopefully Sam's going to be able to play that video.
No problem, Carla.
In this video, we will learn more about using quick-acting insulin, or QA, with meals. It is important to inject QA before eating. The onset time of your QA will help you decide when to inject it. For example, if the onset time is 15 minutes, inject the QA 15 minutes before you eat. The dose of QA is matched to the amount of carbs in the meal or snack. The glucose level should then return into the target range once the QA dose has finished working. This takes around 4 hours, but depends on the duration of your QA insulin. When eating, you can work out your QA doses by using set doses or QA ratios. In this video, we will look at how to use set doses of QA. Let us see how Mick uses set doses of QA with meals. Every day, Mick eats 40 grams of carbs for breakfast and injects 12 units of QA. He varies his breakfast choices, but the amount of carbs and QA doses stay the same. Look out for patterns in glucose levels from one meal to the next. This will tell you if set doses need changing. Glucose levels may regularly reduce or increase after taking the set dose of QA. If there has not been a change in the amount of carbohydrate eaten, then this suggests the set dose of QA needs changing. Mick notices a pattern in his glucose levels. Glucose level rose between breakfast and midday meal for 3 days. Yet his carb portions have not changed. So Mick decides to increase his set dose of QA at breakfast. To work out his new set QA dose at breakfast, he follows the guide in the Victor workbook. As his glucose was rising, he chooses the column Glucose Rising. His QA dose was 12 units, so he chooses the row 11 to 20 units. Where the row and column meet is the Victor recommendation for increasing his QA. Mick increases his breakfast set QA dose by 2 units, from 12 to 14 units. The glucose no longer rises between meals. If you wish to use set doses, these will be discussed during the Victor course. Next, we will look at QA ratios.
Okay, I hope that gives you some idea about what we mean by set doses. Okay, yeah, so up to now, what I've just really mentioned about the content of the course has focused on what it says on the tin, really, varying insulin doses. But there is another aspect of Victor which focuses on reducing insulin resistance. So this has enabled us to bring in lifestyle advice, hopefully in a novel way. And I think the best way to introduce this to you is to play another video. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and Sam, if you could share the next one.
No problem.
Hello, my name is Liesl Richardson and I'm a Victor educator. Over this series of videos, we're going to discuss things that can help your insulin to work better. We've called these Smart 7. To recap, we've used the terms insulin sensitive and insulin resistant to describe how well the body uses insulin to lower blood glucose levels. By insulin, we mean both the insulin the pancreas makes and the insulin injected. In someone who's insulin sensitive, the body uses insulin well. This helps to keep blood glucose in target, and so less injected insulin is needed. In someone who's insulin resistant, the body cannot use insulin well. Blood glucose levels may stay above target and more injected insulin is needed. We'll be describing 7 smart ways to make insulin work better. Our hope for people who attend a Victor course is that they'll become more insulin sensitive and feel the health benefits this brings. As well as helping to lower glucose levels, there are many other benefits. These include improving blood pressure and cholesterol, mood, well-being, and ease of movement. As you watch the videos, think about which of the Smart 7 you may want to try. In the group, you'll plan how you'll do this. Your coursebook will have lots of extra information and suggestions to help you out. Between weeks, have a try at something new. Over the weeks of the course, you may work on one or more of the Smart 7. It's up to you.
Thank you. So yeah, so that's actually 2 different styles of video that you've seen there. So the first one was we've got more of those. They're like sort of short animated videos, and then we've got the ones that we've produced with either Liesl or my colleague Carly Devon talking on the through the video. So it mixes it up a little bit. There was a slight delay there. I think it's because we've got so many people on the call, but the actual voiceovers do actually match with the person's face on the actual video, so you'll be pleased to know. Okay, just share my screen again. So a little bit more about Smart 7 then. Okay, so the Smart 7, we've got the standing, stepping, sweating, smart eating, sleeping, self-care and connecting. So these are, as we said, the 7 smart ways to make the insulin work better. And people aren't expected to do all of them at once. I just encourage you to choose one thing. So 3 of the Smart 7 focus on moving more. So the standing, stepping and sweating. So we've got this, different degrees of increasing activity, from just getting up off the sofa more in the day to building up to meeting your weekly guidance for like aerobic and strength exercise. And there's emphasis throughout the course about moving more after meals, so build that in quite a lot. Sleep is well recognised as having an impact on insulin resistance and appetite. And then we've got self-care, which links to the emotional health content that we mentioned is incorporated into DAFNE. A lot of this is really just, it's not going into any great detail. It's just about flagging it up. It's about acknowledging that this happens in life, and then some signposting. And then connecting, that's links to the social support aspect of connecting. And actually, you might have seen the social support infographic that DAFNE sent round a while ago that can be used in DAFNE and Victor. But that is a summary of the social support advice that we cover in Victor. And actually, and I haven't mentioned before, but some of these videos that we've produced will be able to be used in DAFNE as well. So we've got the DAFNE icon on as well as the Victor icon for some of them. Okay, and then the last one that I've not mentioned is the smart eating one. So smart eating introduces the carb smart concept. So carb smart is all about reducing postprandial glucose by considering the type, the amount, the preparation and the timing of carbohydrate foods. And smart eating more as a whole talks about the importance of eating regular balanced meals over the day, and we use the plate model to visualize the portion sizes and to talk about the healthy eating principles. We're focusing on including, good portions of good quality protein, fiber, unsaturated fats, and reducing salt. And we also give people a guide on carb portions if that's what people want to do. So we provide carb portions in 20, 40 and 60 gram carb portions that people can use to go along with their set doses. So I think I mentioned probably quite a few of the new content in Victor. I mentioned Carb Smart, emotional health and social support. So understanding type 2 diabetes, we've got a couple of videos on that. One's about the difference between type 1 and type 2, how type 2 develops. The second one is more about insulin resistance, how insulin resistance develops and how insulin resistance can be improved, to start building in this message that the Smart 7 then sits onto. And then we've got a section on medication of type 2 diabetes, which talks about the different types and how they work, but also looks at barriers to taking medication and aiming to sort of support people to take their other medications regularly. Okay. Something I've not mentioned so far is about continuous glucose monitoring. So that this is built into the course, really partly because we feel that in time that this is going to be, people with type 2 diabetes are going to be eligible for CGM. So it's to future-proof the course as well. But we are encouraging centres to think about people on the Victor course using CGM, at least maybe one sensor started in the first group session to be, so they've got a sensor running for 10 to 14 days of the course, which can help them look at patterns in their glucose, look at effects of exercise, look at effects of different foods, which will fit in around Carb Smart and fit in around the messages that we're giving about moving more after meals. But we appreciate it's not, they don't meet the eligibility criteria, so it is optional for centres. We have done different interventions in Sheffield where we've people with CGM, people with type 2 diabetes have used CGM and shown to be successful, and we have been able to request the GP continues with the prescription because we have shown such a good improvement. So it may be that that is an option for some areas. But it's fine. The course is built with glucose monitoring using finger pricks. That's built into the course all the way through, so it doesn't disadvantage people not using CGM. Okay, so on to the pilot then. Thinking about if you are thinking about doing it in your centre, just as a bit of a recap, who are we recruiting? So people with type 2 diabetes who are not ketone prone, already on a basal bolus. So that can be, it doesn't have to be like 3 mealtime injections a day. It could just be 1, they could just be sort of building up to more, so that's fine. Speaks and reads English, able and wanting to self-manage diabetes, willing to check glucose at least 4 times a day, willing and able to do online learning. I think we've found that with remote DAFNE, haven't we? It's not helpful if people have only got a phone. They need to really have a computer or tablet to do the online learning and participate in the calls, and able to attend group sessions. So they can put that time aside to do the course. And then in terms of educator requirements, we think it's going to be helpful to have a nurse and a dietitian running the courses together. And, even if it's a remote course, I think it'd be good to have both. People need to be DAFNE educators already and then have attended the Victor training. So this is for the pilot. So we appreciate, we have had feedback that, other nurses and dietitians within the centres may want to train to be Victor educators, and that who aren't already DAFNE educators. So we are taking that on board, but this is for the pilot. So dates for the pilot, we're still developing all of this training materials and patient materials, but we're planning to be able to deliver the healthcare professional training from October onwards to the end of the year, and then looking at pilots starting November and running until March next year. So possibly thinking maybe some centres might do a course before Christmas, and then other centres might want to do it in the new year. we shall see. So if you're interested in running a pilot course, DAFNE will be sending out dates next month, dates with the training, the time commitments required for the training, and then, you know, giving you that time frame again to see if you think you can actually provide something in that time scale. And if people are interested, if people register their interest, then they will get more details from mid-July onwards. So yeah, I think that is it for me for now. So thank you for listening, and I am going to open up the session for questions.
Carla, Ola at St. Vincent's has asked how many participants per group do you recommend?
So it's going to depend whether you do it face to face or remote. So, and I guess for pilot courses, people often want to start with a smaller group. So if you want to do, you know, so you could do up to 8 face to face, but you might want to start with smaller. With the remote, again, maybe start with 4, 4 to 5. But I think 4 might be better in terms of, because there's a little bit more in the group sessions for the remote one.
Thank you. Elsie at Norfolk would like to know what does the training involve? Is it remote or face to face, and for how long?
So it's definitely remote, I can tell you that. We haven't developed the healthcare professional training yet. So it's something that we're going to be doing. It'll be done by September. So we're thinking it's going to be some online learning for yourselves. So going through some maybe narrated PowerPoints, obviously going through the online course yourself on the Open University, and then coming together for a training session. So I think that would probably be up to half a day on a Teams call. But don't hold me to that. But that's sort of what we're thinking.
Thanks, Carla. Tamara at Swansea would like to know how many courses need to be done for the pilot if enrolled for the pilot.
So 1 is fine. I think 1's absolutely fine. You know, if you can get 1 course with 5 participants, that would be good. It depends how many people we get for the pilot. I think we want to have at least 100 patients through the pilot. So if we get plenty of centres, there may be no need to do more than 1. I guess it's always nice to do a couple, isn't it? Because it sort of gives you more of a sense of whether it was the first group was a typical group or what are the themes coming up. So I think 2 would be good, but 1 would be okay.
Catherine at Manchester has a big issue with dietetic availability for face-to-face DAFNE already, and could a DSN alone do Victor?
I mean, for the pilot, we're recommending that it's a nurse and a dietitian, so I wouldn't change that for now. So I think if that's the case, then unfortunately maybe you wouldn't be eligible to do the pilot, and then let's see what feedback we get from the DAFNE educators after that. It is going to be quite dietetic heavy if you think about the content for Victor, so it would always be helpful to have a dietitian. So yeah, there's something around the community staff not being DAFNE trained. So we do acknowledge that has come up quite a few times now. So what that means is that the Victor training would be longer. If you've not a DAFNE educator already, the Victor training would be longer. So we would have to develop a new training course if we go on to train non-DAFNE educators. And again, that's not saying that that's not possible. It's just saying we're not going to do it for the pilot. Does it matter if they're remote or face-to-face educators? Let's get back to you about that.
Carla, Sally Hilton would like to know, could a dietitian assistant delivered once trained? We would need some educators who are not already DAFNE trained to roll out.
So I think, again, like if you can't meet what we're suggesting for the pilot, then just leave it as it is for now, and let's see if the pilot's successful with a nurse and a dietitian, and then look at these different options in the future. But I appreciate, people are keen to do the course, and that's great, but I think we just need to sort of stick with the plan to start with. It's a lot of questions, isn't there?
Yeah. Paula McGurk would like to know, is there any exclusion around types of med, for example, SGLT2 or GLP-1?
No, not at all. I'm just looking through the questions now.
Yeah, I think Jill and Becky are helping with answering them.
Yeah. So someone's mentioned about the surprise that weight loss not part of the Smart 7, so that's good to talk about. So it's a weight neutral course. That means that we're not using weight loss as a way to improve outcomes. So the focus isn't on weight. So really we are looking at trying to reduce barriers, and I think that our experience is that people who are at this stage in their diabetes have had a lot of weight loss advice, and they are where they are at that point in time. So revisiting all of that maybe isn't helpful, and trying something new might be helpful. So we can never guarantee with this group of patients, if they followed all this advice, they would ever lose weight anyway. So, you're possibly setting people up to fail by suggesting that this course is going to help them lose weight. But also at the same time, we're not suggesting that they won't lose weight, because a lot of these behaviours that we're trying to encourage people to make could lead to weight loss behaviour. It's just we're not suggesting that that's guaranteed. We're suggesting that these behaviours could improve lots of different physical and emotional sort of health aspects of their lives. So yeah, and let's see what happens. Just going to try it and see.
Another question, Carla. Could Victor be a soft DAFNE option for those tables who struggle with carb counting and a wealth of information?
Yeah, it could well be. It's definitely a simpler option. Something to look at in the future, isn't it?
Claire Henk has her hand up. Claire, would you like to ask a question?
Thank you. Yeah.
Can you unmute yourself, Claire?
I did, it pinged back on again. Sorry, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
So we're really thinking about the cost side of it. So whether or not it was included in the current DAFNE license, and then the cost of the equipment and things that might be coming along with it. Obviously, this is one of the big things we've been struggling with the delivery of type 2 education currently.
So yeah, so it's all part of being in the DAFNE collaborative, is that this course, you'd just be provided with this course to run it. I don't think, and I suppose it's just the resources. I think, the plan might be to provide free resources for the pilot, and then just see how it goes, really. But there isn't loads of resources. There's the workbook and the Carb Smart Pocket Guide and the Victor Diary.
Right.
But that's it, really.
Okay, thank you.
The bargain.
Carla, Catherine has asked, does it cover insulin titration if type 2, sorry, I can't pronounce that, pharmacotherapy impacts on weight and less insulin is needed?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Because that's all to do with dose adjustment, isn't it? So people looking for patterns and changing their doses. So if they become more insulin sensitive and they lose weight and they need less insulin, then hopefully they'll be spotting that in their diaries and in the sessions, and we're training them for the future to be able to do that for themselves. And in terms of, I suppose, in terms of changing actual tablets and other medications, we don't go into that in terms of changing doses of tablets. It's just we're sticking to insulin. But I guess that would be hopefully something they would be in touch with their team about.
Thanks, Carla. Sandra would like to know, why is a key component of the Victor course required online learning, considering the typical example of someone with type 2 being a person not tech savvy? Would this not be a disadvantage? Would there be scope for purely face-to-face delivery?
Yeah, I totally get that point. I think the online learning helped us develop more of the infographics, the illustrations, the videos. So, there is that option to do that. And in the future, I think, you could be playing the videos in the session and talking through those. But again, I think for the pilot, we'll try this online content and see. But there is a lot of flexibility with the format, I think, the way that we've done it. If anyone's answered a question that hasn't had it answered, might be, if you want to put your hand up, that might be easier.
Mandy Stock would like to ask a question. Mandy, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yes, I think so. Is that clear?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hi. Sorry, just something that's going through my head. So with the DAFNE online, there's obviously no workbook anymore because it's all online. So am I right to think that it's a mixture for the Victor? There's the online, but then they also get a hard copy. I just wanted to check that I kind of heard that correctly.
Yeah, that's right. And I think that was, that's touching on that point, that previous question that I just answered from Sandra, thinking about people aren't as tech savvy, so not having everything online. So although we've got like the useful guides online, they're also printed out. We've got lots of flowcharts and infographics in the workbook as well, so people can sort of go back to those. And yeah, the work, and really not answering questions online, like not writing action plans online. I mean, there is still the activities that you can fill online, but not something that you'd want to keep. That's all in the workbook. So your action plans, your personal targets, everything's just on paper. I think that definitely suits this group better. Probably suits most of us, to be honest.
Yes, it does. Thanks.
Jenny Gibbs got her hand up. Are you able to unmute yourself, Jenny?
Okay, sorry. Like Claire said, it sort of it chops and changes a little bit. I just wanted to ask what the plan. We're just thinking how we might put together a business plan for this, because obviously there are, individual centre costs involved. Are you planning any sort of follow-up, or are you thinking a 6-week follow-up might be indicated, or what are your thoughts there? Or is it just sort of a 12-month point, or?
Yeah, definitely 6 weeks, just following the same format as all the other DAFNE courses. In terms of a business case, I think it'll be looking at, again, the pilots, won't it, and see if people feel if it's saved any time. Really, it's looking at what you're currently doing now with that group of people and how long it's taking.
Yeah, so sort of almost like how redirecting these patients in a different treatment pathway. But like you say, probably it sounds like it's very well needed in our area, so it's really quite an exciting thing to be thinking about. But trying to get money out of the NHS to do any of these things, for things like room bookings and just patient or staff time, I think probably is the key factor here, isn't it? The staff time is probably where the cost lies. We're just trying to rack our brains how we might turn it into something that might actually pull together in a positive business case to get some money. That feels a challenge, but certainly exciting to be involved in, because we've been looking for something like this for quite a long time, I think.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, certainly in our in Sheffield, that what we were thinking, that we run these clinics for people on MDI, and by doing one less of those a week, we would save like a half-day slot. And it's a nurse and a dietitian, it's a shared clinic. So things like that we were thinking that would give us that time back.
Yeah, I think that feels like a positive way of, because certainly we all have, I'm sure everybody else on the call probably has joint clinics, that we could probably reallocate our time that way. Yeah, it's good. Thank you.
Carla, Kath Perry has a question. Kath, are you able to unmute yourself?
Yep. Hello. I'm sorry if I didn't quite pick this up when it was being discussed, but normally the educators that deliver DAFNE deliver education for people with type 1 diabetes, whereas the education for type 2 diabetes is delivered in the community. So none of those dietitians or DSNs are DAFNE trained. How would they be able to access this to see if it would be something that they would want to do? Because at the moment they're using expert insulin to do this. So
yeah, it's a good point. So how they could access it, I suppose, to see if they liked it, you mean like a sort of taster to see if it was something they wanted to go with?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I suppose, I mean, I need to think about that a little bit more, really. They can just see things like the Victor promotional video and maybe some sort of examples. But that, I suppose we were just thinking about that we knew that group of educators was out there. They couldn't access the training at the moment. That might be something that we offer them. I suppose in the future, if we move to being able to train non-DAFNE educators as Victor, we'd probably look at how we could promote it to those different groups of staff to see if they wanted to do it.
Yeah, because I mean, it's very interesting for me to sit here and look at it and think, oh yes, this is really good, but I don't actually deliver education for people with type 2 diabetes. So, it's that sort of like, secondary care versus the primary care, isn't it, really? Where type 2 diabetes is usually looked after, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's been so diverse. So, it's different in all different areas, who provides this education. And also the types of insulin regimes, everything's so different. So, we're trying to sort of cater for a lot of different things, really. But yeah,
Okay.
I think your point will definitely be noted, Kath. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll show them the promotional video anyway and see what they think.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Yeah,
Thank
you can always show them some stuff. You'll have access to it if you would,
Yeah, yes, they could
have
come in
access
and
stuff.
yeah. Okay, lovely. Thank you.
Carla, Mandy has another question. Mandy, you should be able to unmute your mic.
Mandy.
Hi. Sorry. Yeah. I was actually just going to ask exactly the same. I forgot to take my hand down. Exactly the same as the lady who's just been on, because I rarely see anybody with type 2 diabetes in secondary care. It would be the community colleagues. And I was just thinking about, as sort of the referral process into this and things like that. That was just, so I guess it piggybacks on the previous.
I could answer the question about the expert. So what would you say the benefits over expert insulin is? I mean, I haven't run expert. I have had a look at the content of it, being aware that it was for people on insulin. I think I'd probably just say about the differences. I'm not really sure about the benefits until we do Victor, but the differences are, the feedback was that expert courses had quite large numbers on the groups. So Victor would be smaller groups. I think, DAFNE has its expertise in teaching people to adjust doses of insulin. I don't think Victor expert goes into things in quite the detail that Victor does. In terms of all the different elements around sort of managing illness, managing hypos, looking at patterns in detail. But Victor also, getting all the names mixed up, expert also does talk about different lifestyle elements, and as Victor does, but I guess we've packaged it in a different way. So there's definitely some sort of similarities. Okay. So I think, yeah, I can see that people are leaving. So it's probably, is it time to wrap it up, Sam, do you think?
Yeah, whenever you're ready, Carla.
Okay. Yeah, so we'll be in touch. Thanks everyone for your time this morning. Enjoy the rest of your week.